Hey everybody, welcome to Q&A video number 49. Make sure to keep asking questions. Doesn't matter what they're about. They can be about anything. Just know I don't respond to review requests or let's play questions in these videos, but we'll respond to them in the comments. You can post your questions in the comments below. You can send them to me via PM or put them in your post section of the forums or on my Steam group. There's a discussion topic available for that. Gameplay in the background is the showdown effect, which is rather fun when it wants to work, but half the time it doesn't want to work. Anyway, we're going to start today with a question from Epic941. As far as video games go, what do you prefer? Do you like games like Call of Duty that are more based on action than story or exploration? Or do you prefer adventure games, Half-Life, Fallout, Bioshock, etc., which have more focus on story, characters, and exploration? Well, your terminology's off, because when you say adventure game, I instantly think King's Quest, Space Quest, stuff like that. Point-and-click, parser adventures, that sort of thing. I don't think Half-Life, which is an FPS. I don't think Fallout, which is an isometric RPG, or if you're talking about Fallout 3 in New Vegas, then, well, in Fallout 3's case, an FPS, in Fallout New Vegas' case, an FPS with very heavy RPG elements, and effectively an RPG. And Bioshock being another FPS. You're talking about more gameplay styles. Well, it really just depends. It doesn't really matter what type of game it is. I will like it or dislike it on its own merits. And that's really the thing. I just play whatever I'm in the mood for, and whether I'm, I've have a long period of time available to me, I decide to play something that's more long and exploration based, like Gothic or even stuff like Bioshock, for instance. Then that's one thing. If I don't have a heck of a lot of time, typically I'll play the stuff that's more short and to the point and maybe more action-y. It all depends on how much time I have available to me and what I'm in the mood for. It's not really a matter of liking one or the other, because I like both, and I definitely don't like one over the other. Again, it depends on circumstances as to what I end up playing at any given point. Next one's from Serious Hedgehog Co. Yeah, you expected this one. What's your view on how women are portrayed? Yes, I spelled it wrong in video games. That is a weird issue, because this is pretty much a direct response to that whole Anita Sarkeesian thing with the tropes versus women in video games. And yes, there is the whole stereotyping women in video games thing. But the question is whether it's done as like making women sexual objects or something like that, or whether it's just done easy because it's easy. And it's really mostly done because it's easy. It's not done out of malice or any sort of bizarre fantasies the writer has. It's done because it's easy. It is very easy to write a story where it's, the princess in the tower and you have to rescue her. That's so easy to write for. And so that's why video games tend to have these tropes, so to speak. It's not a matter of being misogynistic. It's because game writing hasn't necessarily gotten stronger as a whole. There's still a lot of room to maneuver in game writing, and it's more often than not you see people going for what's easy rather than doing things out of a more intelligent and educated, I guess, perspective. You are seeing that changing lately, but for the most part, it's done because it's easy. It's not done out of any sort of malice, and I particularly don't care, because I know plenty of women who play video games and they're not bothered by it, because they obviously know it's not done out of malice, it's not done because it's misogynistic, it's just easy. So, take it or leave it, I guess. Next one's from Noir Suede. How do you feel about games being more and more brown and gray? I don't like it. It drives me nuts, because when you have something that's brown and gray, it is not necessarily realistic. Real life is completely full of color. And so when you have these things that are brown and gray and realistic, you're just making things an artistic choice that's really easy, because you now only have a handful of colors that you can use, and you can't really spend much time and effort on making things pop out or things look appealing. You have to make everything just look awful, and it's easy, so they do it. And It's annoying. So when games come along that have lots of bright colors and everything in them, but aren't necessarily over the top, like I felt like Far Cry 3 actually did the color thing really, really well, while still looking pretty realistic. It did a brilliant job with that. And then you had Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, which went completely off the rails and made everything look ridiculous, but it was still really colorful. And so stuff like that I appreciate a lot more now that there's been this huge wave of brown and gray and realistic stuff going on. And yeah, as you well know, I find it really annoying when games are nothing but brown and gray. Next one's from Andrew. What's your opinion on the initiative of extra credits on Rocket Hub called Games for Good? They want to change the dialogue that revolves around games from the bad to the good things that they give us. It seems that they already reached their goal. However, the ultimate mission seems to develop and spread to the general public that idea of games having more artistic and creative potential than meets the eye. Is it a realistic thought to achieve it, however? Really, the whole pushing games as a possible medium for art, that's just going to take time. As with any other medium, it's just going to take time. There was a time when film was not seen as artistic, and yet we see it now as artistic. Granted, film has been around since the early 1900s, so I don't know how long it'll take. We already have games that are more and more artistic, and some of them end up being just as pretentious as any other form of art. But is it a realistic goal? It's realistic, yes, but I don't think it's going to happen just from quick initiatives like this. It's going to happen as a result of very gradual change. So, that coupled with the other positives that games have, we're already seeing more and more people are kind of latching on to the whole games as a positive force rather than just the ridiculous backlash they had in the early 90s. Some of you remember that, I'm sure, with the whole formation of the ESRB and everything. Blaming video games for just about every problem in society. We're getting away from that. We're getting into, hey, maybe there are positives to these things. And soon enough, we're going to have it to where, yes, they are seen as a viable art form. Although some people would have you disagree with that, of course. Them being typically old and set in their ways. Next one is from Ragnarok, and this is the last one for today. DW, what's your opinion on XCOM Enemy Within only being DLC on PC for $30, while the console players have to buy the main game again with its expansion for $40, much like what Capcom did with Street Fighter and Dragon's Dogma? Do you think this is an extremely dated and unfair move, or you simply think the mere $10 difference between the two is negligible? It's a weird issue. With Capcom, it's pretty much just nickel and diming because they keep doing that over and over and over again. They'll release the same game with some slight DLC upgrades over and over and over again at pretty much full price. With this thing, I'm not really sure what the whole circumstance is on console, why they can't put it as DLC, but with only a $10 price difference between the base game and the the DLC version on PC and the full console version, including the main game, it shouldn't be that big of a problem. Now, it is a problem for the people who did get XCOM Enemy Unknown and are wanting the expansion on console, but they're just going to have to buy the whole game again. But to be honest with you, it really does strike me as more of a, hey, this is kind of the PC crowd's game, even though it plays out like a console game. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if I consider it a very dated practice with this case, because this is a very odd case. In the case of stuff like what Capcom does, it's definitely dated and unfair. But in Enemy Within's case, not really sure. Because I need to know how much content the game actually will have before I really make a decision one way or the other on that. Anyway, that was Q&A 49. I will catch you guys in other videos. sports.